Are you curious about what's hot and what's not in home design this year? Salem is going to break down six of the top trending styles based on the Kitchen Bath Association, what features define them, and how you can practically bring them into your home style. If you're itching to do a style update, this is the episode for you. Let's go.
You're listening to the We Need to Talk podcast, and we are your hosts, Salem Shannon and Megan Beaver.
Two millennial moms, ambitious professionals, an interior designer, and a business executive.
Join us for conversations that unravel all the things that not only hold us together, but sometimes fall apart.
If you're looking to laugh, cry, and be inspired, all while keeping it real,
you're in the right place. Grab your drink.
Salem, I am excited about today's episode. I hope you are.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yay. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, but you like eat, live, and breathe design. And we're going to be diving into the 2024 design trends that you're seeing come up and about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to go through them. We're kind of going to do like some hot takes. What do we like? What do we not like? But I think you're also going to walk us through some practical ways to bring those designs in that we like, or somebody might decide they like without necessarily going out and doing a, $200,000 renovation, right?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of these, well, we're going to get into it, but I think a lot of these you can kind of like adapt your current style to kind of start to slowly bring some of these elements in, depending on, what your preference is or what you like.
Mm.
And I think we should definitely, make a note that we're going to talk about these 2024 trends today, but maybe in a couple months, we should revisit this after the International Builder Show too.
Ooh, yes, please. And I
Mhm.
can't wait. I know last year you went to that and you put so many good things on your story. So I really can't wait to do that again because I was constantly being like, okay, what's Salem seeing today? I want to see. I want to see. It was like one spectrum to the other, and I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, last year was kind of interesting, but this year it seems, I don't know, like 2023, there was still a lot. I mean, I didn't see as many like clearly defined trends. There was kind of a lot still happening. So, you still saw a lot of like black and white, a lot of, that modern farmhouse look. A lot of you saw a lot of that. And you were slowly starting to see this shift. And then now in 2024, the shift is here. And so we are trending away from modern farmhouse and into these new and different trends.
Okay. So in 2023, Salem, modern farmhouse, black and white was still in. Can you walk us through, laid out into like almost like the list of what trends people are saying are going to be here for 2024?
Yeah. And I will say, modern farmhouse was very much, you still saw it everywhere, but it was on its way out. You were starting to see a lot of warmth come back into people's designs. And so that's been the big shift this year, is make it warm. Like you can still keep that modern farmhouse aesthetic, but not so cold and gray and black and white.
Mm.
Bring the warmth back in. And modern farmhouse does celebrate like natural materials to a certain extent. A lot of like wood, stained wood, exposed beams, things like that. And so that is still very, very popular. But you're trending more from like, I don't want this to sound any certain way, but you're seeing things trend into a more sophisticated design style.
Yeah.
And so not that modern farmhouse isn't sophisticated, but you're seeing a lot more warmth, a lot more antiques, a lot more personality, even if it's in very subtle ways, start to come back. And so that's what we're really seeing in 2024. So I've got six trends highlighted that we're going to talk about. And these are not the be all end alls of 2024. These are just the ones that I'm seeing and the ones that I'm kind of paying attention to, plus the ones that organizations like the National Kitchen and Bath Association, these are the trends that those folks are putting out there and talking about too. If you go online and search trends, 2024 interior design trends, you're going to find tons of information. But I kind of balance the research for this podcast with what I'm seeing on Pinterest versus what industry associations are seeing as well. And so those are your high-end luxury designers who are working for those clients who want to have the like up and coming on trend everything. And so I'm just trying to balance the two.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to ask a quick question because you're saying this is coming more from the industry, the builders, or even like the renovators. Do you think that even in new builds that you'll start to see some of these trends incorporated, or do you think it's more or less like this is what they're saying is going to be on par and in demand this coming year?
So what I see this is if you go out and hire a designer today, they're going to be incorporating these. If you're building a house in 2024, and you don't have a designer and you're just working with your contractor, I don't think you would be seeing as much of this because the contractors and the builders, if they don't have like a designer on staff, they're kind of lagging when it comes to the trends. So right now, modern farmhouse is big and it's going to remain big until the builders catch on to the fact that it's kind of going away. And so just historically, I mean, builders are men. Um, and your contractor typically is going to be a man, and they just simply aren't paying tons of attention to the trends. Now, that's not true across the board at all. Um, but you are seeing usually those builders and those contractors lag a little bit if they don't have a designer on staff.
I think that's a great point because I mean, as we talk, we're going to talk about how do we practically bring these trends in that we like, whatever they lean towards into their home without building and renovating. And so I think that that's important to know is that like there's still going to be ways to approach and succeed at these things. But they can't also run out and expect a new built home to have these things incorporated.
Right.
Cool. Awesome. Well, lay them out there. What are the 6 trends or styles that designers and people are going to be going crazy for this year?
Okay, so the first one is quiet luxury.
Mm.
So that in and of itself kind of sounds sophisticated, but it's all about just refinement and appreciation for living well. So it's not necessarily the most luxurious, fancy, most expensive thing, but just designing your home to appreciate living well.
Okay.
Um, the second one is organic modern. So this is those clean lines, but heavy emphasis on natural materials, and just in general, a sophisticated aesthetic. Number 3 is modern cottage. I think this one has been around for a little while,
Mm.
but I think it's becoming more and more and more mainstream. So that's why it's on the list. And so that's kind of a mix of like European antique charm with modern elements. Number 4 is warm minimalism. It is kind of tied to that organic modern one, but it's reduced visual clutter, and the purpose of the room is highlighted in your design. And then number 5 is Belgian Farmhouse. And this one can kind of be similar to modern cottage in some ways, but it takes the European to the next level. Heavy emphasis on earthy organic colors, and patterns, as
Mm.
well as antiques. And then number 6 is California casual. It can also be called California coastal. But this is if you've ever heard of Studio McGee, this is their signature look. And so it is basically that look of like super light and bright colors, natural materials, It almost always starts with the white walls, like you have a white wall palette, and then you build off of that with tons of texture, but all in like the warm whites and the beige, in natural fiber, natural textures in your textiles, that layered look, and then it your house, the home, the feeling of that style is basically like you walk in, and you feel like you've just come off the beach.
Yeah. And I think it's been around for a little bit too, or at least in
Hmm.
some of the West Coast HGTV shows, or even just like those styles. I feel like it's been around just a little bit too, kind of like your modern cottage, I think. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah. And so, just a quick rundown of all six one more time. So that's quiet luxury, organic modern, modern cottage, warm minimalism, Belgian farmhouse, and California casual.
Okay. We'll break them down a little bit further, I think, too.
Yeah.
Out of these six right now, which one are you feeling like you like the most personally?
I'm probably somewhere between, I don't know. I think for me, I've like plucked different parts out of all of them. I
Yeah.
don't think I can full on pull off California casual. If I had to pick one, it would probably be organic modern. Because as we all know, I definitely cannot categorize my home or myself as a minimalist. But more of the organic color palette has always been my favorite. But trying to keep those clean lines without going to like cottage or farmhouse.
Mm, that's a good way of putting it. I would agree. Yeah.
What
Um,
about you?
I think it's really hard for me to fall into one for sure, just like you, but
Hmm.
I definitely think I lean and love the organic modern and the Belgian farmhouse together. And the elements of each of those that I really like is the natural materials. Like I love some natural stones. I love all the warm colors. I love saturated colors, which is a lot more of those natural colors. And
Hmm.
then the Belgian farmhouse, like I love some wainscoting and I love some pattern. So, and if you've ever
Right.
took pictures of my home, I think all of those are captured in that form or fashion.
Yeah. I mean, you could be not be recording from a more perfect place with your yellow ochre
Yeah.
curtains there.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Each of my bedrooms have pretty deep colored curtains or what are they? Window fixings. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I could see Belgian farmhouse for you for sure. 'Cause I mean, you love pattern. Belgian farmhouse really celebrates wallpaper and those subtle, like, you
Yeah.
know, patterns and textures. So yeah, I could totally see that for you too.
All right. Well, let's break these down a little bit further. I would love to figure out if somebody is like, oh, I love the first one, which is the quiet luxury, right?
Hmm.
What are, let's say, three things that they could do that will make it practical and will basically accomplish a more quiet luxury feel?
Okay. So one thing I will say with quiet luxury, I would say you are probably going to spend the most in terms of investment pieces on this one.
Mhm.
Because even yes, luxury is in the name, and by default, luxurious things do tend to cost more money. But quiet luxury is investing in like things like fine bed linens.
Mm.
You're not getting the Target sheets. You're getting the Pottery Barn 100% organic linen ones. Or really, if you're looking at reviews and things like that, when it comes to sheets, Lands End, it ranks extremely high for their Supima cotton um, sheets, but
Okay.
they are not inexpensive. But quiet luxury is going to be investing in things like that. It's not necessarily always about like getting the look perfect. It is about living well. And if you've ever slept in high quality linens,
Hmm.
you know the difference that it makes. And you can't 100% really see that walking into a bedroom. And so that is just an example, like investing in high quality linens for your bedding.
Okay.
Um, Another thing that I kind of put in the quiet luxury category is also convenient. It may not necessarily be something super, super fancy, but it's very subtly, oh my gosh, that is wonderful and nice. So you think about like the walk-in pantry, or even if it's a small little nook where you've crafted like a little bar area where you've included an ice maker and an under counter refrigerator that's like got the
Mhm.
drawers, or even if it's just like a mini fridge, like you've organized this with cabinetry and drawers with snacks, like it's a little convenience center for your kids, or a beverage center if you're entertaining adults. But it's like this nice little tucked away little bar that you didn't necessarily have to invest a ton of money in, but it creates this whole extra experience plus the added convenience of having that there.
You saying that made me think of something else, and it goes into the bathroom. Hot take, the bidet seats. Are those considered something that would come into quiet luxury? I mean, they're coming back. They're coming back.
No, okay, they have been back. They are back, and that yes, I would advocate anybody getting a bidet. And yes, it would definitely fall into the quiet luxury category because um, if you've ever used a bidet, you know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And you can get super inexpensive ones. I'm gonna all day recommend the Toto washlet. There are tons of varieties, but they make the best product in terms of quality. So if you're gonna get one, I say get the best
We
and do
should
a
link
Toto.
that. We will link
I
that
will.
into our show notes.
Yeah,
Um,
and you can get like a basic model, but they are, upwards of 500, $600, but they are worth it.
right.
Um, and it that is 100% a quiet luxury item. Another thing that's kind of quiet luxury that the NKBA puts in that category is going to be like the linear drains in the shower. If you're doing a ADA or like a universal design shower, you're going to probably put it especially when you have a zero barrier entry. You're going to put in a linear drain, or you should put in a linear drain no matter what. But some people are just putting them in for aesthetics as well. So they serve a function, but they're also beautiful. Another thing that the NKBA, on some webinars that I've been on with them, is lighted mirrors, like a backlit mirror.
Mm.
Something that was primarily something you only saw when you went to hotels. Those things are now becoming more and more affordable for
The home.
residential home buyers.
I love that.
And
Well, I love the
yeah,
linear drain. When we redo our master bath, I will be implementing one of those. And I love the lighted mirrors too. I don't necessarily use like the vanity mirrors and stuff right now, but I would probably invest and install one of those on my next go around if I had to or could.
so I had to mute for a second. Can you hear my dog in the background?
No, could not.
Ah, okay, good, 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 good. Because
Uh,
she's struggling over there.
that's all good. Sometimes we leave things like these in the shows because they're funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so quiet luxury, let's talk colors real quick. Color
Hmm.
palettes. What do you typically see with quiet luxury as far as color palettes go?
Well, you're gonna see like those warm whites. Something when you walk into the room, you feel very welcomed and at home, but still sophisticated. So, I mean, warm whites for sure. And even like a crisp white linen is beautiful. Um, but you can also see on that same token, like pops of color, pops of those jewel tones, some of those earthy colors. As we talk through um, all of these trends, one thing that I'm probably going to repeat over and over are the earth tones. I mean, that is a common thread throughout all of these trends is just, earth tones and kind of like that classic inspiration from nature color palette. So you'll also see though like rich woods, think like walnut. Oak is having a huge moment right now, but always when you're talking about luxury, walnut is gonna be in that conversation.
Mm.
But also like rich fabrics, of course, like a high quality linen, but also like velvets and other things too, are going to be in that luxury category.
Great. Awesome. Well, number two, the second one.
The second one is organic modern. And so this is probably the one that I I'm leaning towards the most, because it kind of brings in some of those clean lines, and also you can easily kind of incorporate like a little Scandinavian, a little bit of mid-century modern into that. And so, of course, I'm a sucker for anything mid-century modern. So I guess that's why I'm leaning towards that one. But it's a heavy emphasis on natural materials, natural stones, wood, exposed wood, things like that, but also natural fiber rugs and fabrics.
Mm.
Um, Again, with the earthy color palette, and wood in general, you're not going to see many grays. If it's going to be gray, it's going to be a very warm gray, but your warm toned woods, and then like the clean lines, like I mentioned before.
Okay. I feel like you and I both love a designer that falls into this category. Nate and Jeremiah. I think it's Jeremiah.
Yeah,
I think he really, this is his style, right? Like I would say he loves those natural materials, all the organic feels, the colors. Um, he's just one of my favorites. So
yeah. It's classy doesn't even begin to
touch him. God,
no.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, wonderful. But yeah, so um keeping that clean aesthetic, but bringing all of the natural materials, the earth tones into it.
Great. So some ways to do that would be like the fabrics that people bring into their home, whether it be like blankets or maybe pillows, or maybe even different types of tables, coffee tables or end tables, in order to really pull in that natural organic material look, I would say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like trade out. Let's just say you bought a house recently, like a new build, or you've recently renovated and you did the black windows that's so popular with the modern farmhouse. That's a great backdrop to kind of transition into this organic modern. And so, get rid of like your super rustic, in terms of like kitschy, like trying to look rustic, and then opt for like a natural marble coffee table, for example, and make sure you've got some curves in there. Arches, curves, a lot of that is another common thread that runs throughout a lot of these trends. And so anything kind of sculptural,
Mm.
spherical, but also natural material would look perfect, against those dark black windows, and soften it up a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's these historical, they're almost like Roman looking vases that are the old sculptural heads. Those are making a comeback. Would that be kind of like that's this category? And if you wanted to do that, put some of those in a well positioned place.
Honestly, I would actually probably put those in modern cottage
Oh,
before
okay.
I'd put them here, but I think they could work here,
I love that. Thanks.
just like they could probably work with any of them. But yeah, the marble busts, are making a comeback. I've seen those quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And color palettes, I know we've already talked about. These are going to be not necessarily stark whites and things, but they're a lot more like low lit. I feel like when I think about this, it's kind of like low lighting, um,
Hmm.
or intimate. And but you're saying still clean palettes with punches of natural.
Natural. Also, organic modern, a big element to this would be like greenery and plants.
Mm.
No faux plants, no
Oh,
silks. It we have real plants in the organic modern, category, and arguably in any category, but we won't go there. But real plants, whether it's a tree in the bathroom, or a plant in the laundry room, whatever it is, incorporating nature into your space.
like the
Um,
oversized stems and limbs of things versus a
hmm
whole bunch of like flowers and color.
right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, the next time you see your neighbor trim all of his bushes and they're that like perfect swirly stick, go
Yes.
grab all of those out of his yard and put them in a vase.
I love them. They look so good when people put those in their house. I mean, it just looks so
I
good.
know. I know, and you don't need anything else on your island. Like, eliminate everything else and just put that off center, and then that's all you need.
Yeah, I'll probably have that before the week is over. Um all right, number 3. Is that our are we at the cottage?
Yeah. So number 3 is Modern Cottage. And this one, like I said, has been around for a while. I even know of a interior design firm in Charlotte, and that's their name, Modern Cottage, and they have the cutest stuff. So definitely give them a follow if you're on Instagram. But that is sort of that traditional meets modern elements meets European charm. So it's kind of like a mashup of all of those things. Um, it definitely embraces that antique aesthetic. Definitely, embraces, celebrates, however you want to phrase that. I think wainscoting or wainscoting, however you want to say that. The rich wood, and there are moments of bold color and pattern. Think traditional mural wallpaper,
Mm,
um, but then also, fun and funky colors and patterns, but in sort of more traditional um, uh, styles, so like kind of a mashup of colors and traditional. Um,
like the
and
plaids will be a
then,
little funkier rather than your typical
mhm,
buffalo check and or yeah, okay.
right, right. And even, kind of pushing it to extremes, kind of like a country club aesthetic,
Oh, okay.
kind of like a blend of that a little bit. So that's something to consider. Um, and you have touches of farmhouse, touches of that down to earth style in this. And so I think that's why it's been so popular, because it's kind of been like this big like melting pot, this big blend of several different styles kind of put together. And now we're calling it the modern farmhouse or the modern cottage. And I think it is kind of an evolution of that modern farmhouse in a certain way. And I read an article online kind of preparing for this modern cottage is kind of like that evolution of like popular styles starting like in the 90s, but then going through like the big Pottery Barn phase. Like everybody loved Pottery Barn there for the longest time, and you were buying brand new things that were made to look old, and then
Yeah.
that transitioned. And then Joanna Gaines and Fixer Upper, transitioned everything into the modern farmhouse. But it was like that kind of common thread from the beginning of Pottery Barn through Fixer Upper through Modern Farmhouse, and now today we're calling it Modern Cottage because it's the evolution of that similar style, and it's more sophisticated.
That makes sense. I also feel like modern cottage, just based on what you sent me and we were looking at together, is like you said, it's this evolution of modern farmhouse, but also not just bringing more patterns, but color too, right?
Right.
Modern farmhouse was very much your white, black, and woods everywhere, all the things, everything. But like modern cottage is starting to bring back in once again those earth tones, but in softer form. I feel like.
Yeah, and bringing in a little bit more personality too, because there for a while, Modern Cottage or Modern Farmhouse got, really cold. I think. Yes, it had some natural materials, but like if you went too dark on your hardwoods and you went too cool on the white that you picked for your walls, and then you've got, the stark white countertops, like it can get really cold really fast if you don't have lots of like warmth in your furnishings.
Mhm.
And so this is everything's moving warmer. So of course in Modern Cottage, but also bringing a little bit more depth and color to it too.
Cool. So number 4.
That is warm minimalism. And so this is another one that's talked about quite a bit. But I had a harder time kind of pulling some inspiration images together for us for our conversation. But it really is kind of it celebrates clutter free, which I felt like was really good considering our last conversation,
Yeah.
our last podcast about decluttering. But it is that clean, clutter-free look, where everything has a place and that place is out of sight. And so it does have a lot of earth tones in it. This is another one where some Scandinavian furniture does come into play. Mid-century can come into play here too. Um, but ultimately, it is about reducing clutter and everything having a function.
Hmm.
Um, but earth tones for sure, organic textures, similar to organic modern. And then if you are going to incorporate personal items, putting those in intentional places, because you can take this one to extremes. And if, depending on the client and the design firm, like people can take this to the extreme where no personal items are included at all in the design. Um, and the thought there is, and I even just saw another designer, interior stylist, post about this today, that kind of talking about or talking to the idea that like high-end design should not feature your personal stuff, because it ruins the aesthetic. And uh, we're real people living real lives in real homes, and so pictures of myself and my kids are in my home, period. So I definitely don't agree with that, but this style does reduce some of that personal stuff, and those are like more intentionally placed.
When I think of modern minimalism, I think of IKEA. I feel, I feel like they're always front of mind when it comes to this. I mean, they're Scandinavian, like, the Scandinavian piece, the pops of color, but it's very linear or abstract and it's minimal. Um, Same with their furniture designs and the way they store and stuff too.
Well, and I think so definitely the way that they are so intentional about storage. I agree with that 100%. But minimalism for me, I think kind of more on the extreme of it is very bare.
Mm,
Um, and not always as welcoming. But with this trend, welcoming is definitely part of it. So making sure that you're using those softer textures. But I can like in a lot of some of the higher end, and definitely, we're not talking about the average American home here for minimalism. We're talking about someone um, who wants to celebrate, modern art and things like that, and wants to use their home as sort of a showcase for their art collection. And they've got, random outcroppings of sculptures, or they've got rooms dedicated to specific paintings. And it's all about the furniture and the art, not necessarily the space. And so that's when I think about modern, that's kind of where my mind goes to, even kind of cold and bare.
got yeah. Okay, that makes more sense. And so you're saying those colors and stuff are going to be a lot more light because the things that are in there are what going to be draws the attention.
Right. But here in this trend specifically, it is keeping everything warm. So warm colors, warm textures, even the natural woods and things like that show up um, in this design style. The biggest thing I think for this one, the big takeaway is clutter free. And nothing in excess. Your bedroom is for sleeping. You don't have a sofa and chair and like 500 other things in there. Every space kind of celebrates the function of the room.
It's funny because I think each of these designs also work well depending on like style of home, size of home, region of home. Like this would do great in a studio apartment potentially, or maybe even an Airbnb. I don't know. It's just it cracks me up because I'm sitting here thinking like it's probably someone who's a bachelor or bachelorette. Or it's almost like your bachelor pad, but sophisticated. Or like a city loft apartment is what I think about when I think about these, because you want that space to be used, but you want to highlight what it's used for.
Right. Right. City loft is definitely something that comes to mind for me. Or like that. Um, I mean, there are a few houses in Hickory that I could definitely easily see it incorporating well in, something with something a little bit more modern. We have a couple of it's there. We don't have a ton, but we do have a few homes that were really kind of pushing the boundaries of for architecture at the time. Things that were built in the 50s and the 60s by some architects from different parts of the world, and so that they could, I could easily see it there. But not your typical um, suburban ranch.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Great. So, Belgium Farmhouse, which is very much opposite of warm minimalism. Salem.
Right,
That.
right. Yes, and Belgian farmhouse is somewhere I feel way more comfortable in general. Um, I struggle with more minimalism mainly because I don't see myself really utilizing much from that other than like some of the common threads. But it's just not an aesthetic that's typically found in my area.
Mm.
But anyway, Belgian farmhouse. This is another one high on European charm, hence the name Belgian farmhouse. But also those rich earthy colors, definitely rich pattern. Wallpaper is a must in this one. Um, Molding and wainscot details. So you're definitely not choosing your standard crown and base moldings on this one. You're going to choose something a little bit more unique, something with a little bit more craftsmanship and character.
Mm.
Um, and so that's definitely going to be one here. And then also a lot of like brushed brass, antique brass finishes. You're not going to see hardly any like stark black. If you are, it's going to be pretty minimal. Instead, you're going to choose those warmer finishes from everything from your door hardware to your light fixtures to your plumbing fixtures. You're going to be choosing something in that warmer family. Even potentially Aura bronze, which for the longest time was totally out, is making a small comeback.
I was literally gonna ask. I feel like that's circling back around, right? It's kind of like coming back to like a 90s trend. Yeah, so out with the black, which is currently what you see in most houses is black hardware.
Oh, and I have it in my house.
Including mine. Yes, I love the Belgian farmhouse. So you were talking about the trim and the molding and stuff like this. Let me ask you this. This is a hot take moment because I'm considering painting some of my trim in like my main living area, potentially my bathrooms, a color versus white. Since I'm not going to pull all my trim down and do new molding. What is your take on that? Does that fall within this? Give me your professional opinion.
So I love that as long as you're also painting your doors.
Yes, I wanted that was going to be my next question. Doors need to be the same
Okay.
color, right?
Yes, doors
Yeah.
need to be the same color. So I love that look. It is so wonderful and classy and it looks fantastic, especially I know you have white walls, I think,
Hmm.
right? You've got that like warm white. So keep the walls white
Yep.
and then choose like a off-white or a beige or like a putty color. I think that looks
Love.
so good.
Hmm.
Like keep it still really light, but it's a contrast.
Correct.
And so it looks earthy and it warms up the whole space.
Great. I'm really glad that I have your blessing on that because I've been sitting on wanting to do it for quite a while, almost a year, but I continuously come back to I think it would look good. I think it would look good. So,
Yeah.
and it leans into the whole Belgian um look that I like because like I have wallpaper in a lot of areas of my house. I love wainscoting. I plan on doing some of that as well. But I just love all of those features. And so yay. I'm glad to
Yeah,
hear.
it would look great. I'm just thinking like Faye's room, like she's got that wild wallpaper in there,
Yeah.
right? And even if you did it, so in her room and in that case, like I'm just picturing that, like if you did, because I think if I'm remembering right, it has like lots of pinks in it,
Yes, lots of
pink floral.
shades of pinks and blue. I'm actually in it right now. So um yellows,
Well,
mustards.
and I was just thinking like for her, like I might even do like a dusty blue on her trim and her doors, like do the window trim, base trim, crown, and then her door on the inside. Like, because you could punch it up with the color in there. I just wouldn't do it throughout the rest of your house.
Right.
Like where you've got some wallpaper that's got like color in it. I might even choose like a coordinating color, but just do it in that room and then keep it kind of neutral throughout the rest of the house.
I love that tip because I know I have lots of friends that we go to their house and they have powder rooms with wallpaper. And so what
Yeah.
you're thinking is like a powder room would be the perfect place if you have a wallpaper that has a color to find a complementary color to pull in on the trim.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Um, one of these days, maybe one day soon, my powder room will get a makeover, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. The color I have picked out for the trim and the wainscot in there is like the same color as your draperies as the curtains in phase room.
Ooh, I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's a little bit wild, but I've got that black and white floor. So I couldn't go with like the normal, like, kind of neutral palette in there. I wanted something a little bit more colorful.
Yeah, I think when we post this episode, it'll take up a lot of space in our stories and stuff, but we should probably start putting in some like examples of each of the styles and even our what's on our project list, like my way, like my trim, like your powder room, just to give everybody visuals of what to look for, what to expect, and also like identifying what they truly like and lean into, right? Because
Yeah.
very different, and you and I both don't lean into one specific one altogether. We do pull from another one here and there, but I think visuals help a lot of people who don't necessarily deal with design every day know exactly what we're talking about, but giving these great examples of like the powder rooms and the trim and the wallpapers and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been working on my YouTube editing skills, on my video editing skills. I can throw in on our YouTube upload these slides that I have with kind of like the breakdown for each style with
Yeah.
like the bullet points and the images. I think I can probably pull that one off for the
Great.
YouTube episode.
Yeah, so if you want to listen to it and see it, YouTube would be the place to go. So going back to Belgium, I don't want to leave it too quickly. I know that we got off on a tangent because I just needed some personal design advice. But we've talked about wainscot, trim, wallpaper. You said more colors, and I think that we even mentioned those colors. I just want to recap those. It could be very much like more saturated or punchy colors, right?
Yeah, like rich. Think of like rich earthy colors, like those dark sagey greens, the
Mm,
dusty blues, even like the
Terracottas.
ochre, um, and even some rust colors in there, like terracottas. That's another like hot color. It continues to be very, very popular. But just those really like earthy, moody neutrals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love those. Okay. Number, what's the next number? I,
The last one is California casual.
yes. Okay. Like we just got off the beach.
Yeah, like we just got off the beach. We've got super light fabrics, but still with a little bit of the earthy tones pulled in, a lot of natural wood, a lot of even like some you see some even like some primitive antiques pulled into this one. Same
Mm,
with the Belgian farmhouse. I'm not talking about like super traditional antiques. I'm talking about the ones like from um, early 1900s. Just super primitive, came out of the farmhouse, was used, generation after generation after generation, very worn looking, definitely not finished. So you see a lot of those kind of come into play here. You do see the clean lines, you still see the black windows or the dark windows. Um, and it's like modern meets rustic meets coastal. So that's what I was saying with the primitive antiques. Those rustic antiques are definitely seen in this one. It's relaxed, but it's also sophisticated. And where you see the sophistication is in your decor. So you're choosing some of that more handmade pottery, not the generic pottery from Hobby Lobby or from off the shelf, something that's coming from the antique store or that has actually been made by, an artisan or a craftsman, something you picked up even at a estate sale, something like that. Um, Even like this is where, and now you're starting to see like the faux come in to Amazon, but like the pottery lamps.
yes.
Okay, this is the style that brought that back.
Okay. Pottery
Um,
lamps. All
Pottery
right.
lamps.
I feel like I see when this is done really well too, that people bring in driftwood
Hmm.
as sometimes like I've seen somebody do an amazing job at bringing in a huge driftwood table, where the base of it was very nice, chunky driftwood, but then it wasn't like too coastal. It had a top to it and it was just done
Right.
really well. And it was really light and it felt light. I feel like driftwood feels light, uh,
Yeah.
when done right.
Yeah, absolutely. This is another one where like the layered textures when it comes to your textiles, think like rattan rug, then antique Persian on top,
Okay. Layering,
like
layering.
layering the rugs, or, just something like the layered look, is definitely prevalent in this style. Also, cane and rattan. Another texture that's big, thinking about like console tables and, some of your accent furniture having that cane detail. This is another one with the white walls. I will forever be an advocate for white walls. Um, the earth tones and natural wood tones again.
They're really light. I think
Mhm,
that's the case, right? They're like more like your very light blues or your very light greens. Um,
yes,
when I see this design incorporated, it's just very light. And if you have a punch of color, it's like a spot. It's not a lot.
right, and it's very subtle. It's,
Yes.
against like a very light neutral background, even like a gray green is going to one look green, but two feel kind of seamless. And while it might be a contrast, it's not going to be overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Okay. And so you're saying bringing in maybe some pottery lamps. You even mentioned Amazon has these now, so people could find them on there for a much more affordable rate. But you don't want to overdo it, right? I think when people are trying to incorporate this stuff, they do need to have a good blend of affordable but also authentic pieces. How would you advocate for that?
Yeah, and so when you think about all of these different styles, one, there are a lot of similarities that run throughout all of them. But another thing, I mean, these are just 6 styles that I pulled out that I felt like were worth talking about, and I'm the ones that I'm paying attention to. So, 1, these aren't all of them, but 2, thinking about just in general elements that you can pluck from each of these, because another big trend that's not on my list because it doesn't have like a fancy name yet or anything is a basically like just being yourself and letting your home be a reflection of you.
Yeah, like it's all in.
Right. Basically, it's all in.
Kind of like fashion. You just break all the rules because there's no rules anymore.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so when you think about it, I mean, the biggest common thread that I see running throughout all of the styles that's worth paying attention to is warmth. Okay. We're not choosing the cold whites. Gray is not in any part of our conversation. And everything is warm. And then the second one is natural wood.
Mm,
Think about a kitchen renovation. For the longest time, we were doing only painted cabinets, and that was either, white or gray. That is no more. Gray cabinets are no more unless you're doing like a warm gray.
yeah.
That comes off as more of like a taupey gray or a beigey gray. Very, very, very warm gray. But real right now, especially like in the kitchen, and then I'm even seeing it in the bathroom, is bringing in like a natural wood vanity. And in a lot of our projects that we've done over the past year, there have been several that we did a stained vanity in the bathroom,
Mm,
and they have turned out fantastic. In another kitchen remodel, we did a natural walnut island, and that thing is a stunner. It is beautiful. And so those warm colors, those natural woods, they have made a huge comeback. Hot take though, when we're talking about wood, um, oak has made a big comeback. And I might eat my words later. And I'm not saying that I won't be recommending this to somebody in the future, but the new oak that's out right now, the new white oak with with like the washed stain, that is the 2024 version of the pickled oak from like 1990. I don't
Wow.
even know when it was popular. But that's my hot take for today. And we will be revisiting this in 5 years and saying, oh, that oak right there, you installed that in 2024.
Yep. Designers know, don't they? They can pretty much put the age on something.
Well, I mean, it is so gorgeous, and I have seen it done so many times and so beautifully. That reeded front cabinet, that reeded cabinet door in
Yeah.
the oak, in the rift cut oak. I've seen that look a million times, and it is gorgeous. But what my biggest concern is, it has become like this fire hot trend, and it is going to get put out quickly.
Yep. Yep. It'll turn over. W- because you know that and you've seen it and you've seen the cycle, what are some ways people can not be caught up in the cycle and stay timeless? I know that there's always this like, I want my look to be timeless in a way. What are
Right.
some staple decisions that people can make to make sure they are timeless?
So I think one thing is the biggest thing, and this, it's funny that this is kind of cropped up in like some of the searches that you'll do, but like the first thing is choose things that you like, not things that you think are trendy.
Yeah, I agree.
Like when you see them and you love them for what they are, then you should buy them.
Okay.
Now, some people might have like tacky, gaudy taste. That's when you should call a designer.
I was gonna say
But
hire a designer, hire Salem.
the, just hire a designer. It doesn't even have to be me. Just hire a designer to help you if you feel like you have gaudy taste. But if you see things that you love, then you should buy them, regardless of what's on trend.
Hmm.
But so aside from that, there are still easy ways to incorporate the trends in an affordable way. I mean, you gave a great example. You're getting ready to potentially paint all of your interior trim, your crown and your base and your doors. It's not going to cost a whole too much because one, you're going to do it yourself, but two, I mean, we're just talking about paint. Paint's inexpensive
Hmm.
and it can be painted over, you know. In a
Yeah.
couple years, you hate it, paint over it. And I feel that way about wallpaper, even though it's a little bit more labor intensive to take off. But as long as you put it on in the right way, it should come off in the right way. And
Yeah.
so,
Paint,
wallpaper,
paper, not permanent fixtures, but hell, even light fixtures can be changed. I feel like.
100%. And there are ways to change them without buying a new one. And so, I have recently just, well, and I've done this a couple of different times, but you can, um, if you need to change the finish, you can spray paint your light fixture. I like to use Rust-Oleum or some sort of like heavier duty spray paint. I used to go to the automotive paint store and buy automotive spray paint and use that. But now they've got more and more finishes that you can buy at the hardware store. But you can spray paint that fixture.
Okay.
Make sure to tape it up really good, but spray paint it.
Wow.
Or they make this product called Rub and Buff, like RUBNBUFF, Rub and Buff. And I've seen tons of people use that stuff and basically put a different finish on their light fixture.
Oh, great hack.
I've seen people use it on mirrors, all kinds of stuff. So that's another quick, weekend project to give your light fixture a facelift, and it's inexpensive. I think a tube of that Rub and Buff's like maybe like $8 or $9 at Hobby Lobby.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. Okay. Great.
And then, you can easily switch up your decor by choosing, as long as you've got a neutral base. And so that's one thing I do recommend when you're buying like investment pieces, big pieces like a sofa, your bedroom suite or your your bed, the bed itself, like make sure you're choosing something that's kind of neutral and timeless. Those are the pieces that have, a touch of traditional, that aren't overly stylized when it comes to the hardware or the finish.
Mm.
And then um, that way it can last you through whatever season. And then, maybe once every 20 years you do change those out. But they're going to last you through the comings and goings of the different trends every year.
Yeah.
Um,
I would like to bookmark that we need to do an episode about investment pieces and how long they should last. I think I think that would really help people on their spending habits if they knew how long certain things should last.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I just think about, our sofa is it's nearing the end of its life. But is not we're not ready to get rid of it yet. And so I did choose, something that had a traditional leg and a kind of like a modern but still traditional arm, nothing that's overly puffed or stylized. And yes, it was an investment piece. But I can switch it up and change the look with my throw pillows
Yeah.
easily, and also the rug that's underneath it. And you can easily go to Home Goods if you need an 8x10 rug and pick up a new one for a
Yep.
couple $100s. And so the pillows and your rug are two easy ways to spruce up your living room and get it on trend without investing a ton of money.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really
Um, and then when it comes to like art and things on your wall, I'm really leaning into this season of buying, you know, art that's made by an artist that you've personally met,
mm,
or even art that speaks to you that you've found at the antique store, but it's an original piece.
yeah. Yeah.
It could even be one of the paint by numbers, back in the day, everybody went through that phase. And some of those look really, really great. But something that's more original than, a piece of art that you've picked up at Kirkland's or,
Those are great gifts too. I'm
mhm,
not only just speaking because like you did an original piece for my parents this past Christmas. I have an original piece by you in my house. We also have some original pieces by a local artist down at the beach that we vacation at as a family on a yearly basis. And so I really love that like suggestion. I think it's a great recommendation. I think it makes just a meaningful gift exchange or even just a placement in your home if you're doing it for yourself too.
absolutely. And that kind of stuff is timeless. Like it's not going to go out of style.
Yeah.
A piece of original artwork is not going to go, for the most part, out of style, depending on what you've picked. And so even if it's got a story that goes along with it, I mean, that's even better. So that's what I recommend when it comes to artwork. Now, with some of these trends, like I'm thinking about Modern Cottage and Belgium Farmhouse, the sort of, I don't
Landscape.
even know the right word, the oil landscape painting has
Mhm.
taken over, and now you can buy reproduction, like print on your inkjet printer copies to put in a gold frame that you found from Target to achieve the look. And that's perfectly fine, and that is some inexpensive way to get the look.
Yeah,
If
it's
you
a hack.
really want, if you really want to go on it all in on a trend.
Yeah, that's a great hack. I think that you and I, as people who appreciate art and like original pieces, it'd be really hard for us to lean into that piece of it. But I think it's a great hack for people who are like, I really want to accomplish this in an affordable way. Absolutely. Go print that bad boy and frame it in maybe even a vintage frame that you find for a much better like price. Um,
100%, 100%. That is definitely an easy way. And I mean, I think we're lucky because we have access to some really great antique stores. You can always find one, even if it's a reproduction print from the 60s, you can usually find one at the antique store or at the thrift store, to pull those types of things in. And so that's, I think, another way I like to save money when it comes to trends
mm,
is it like, and the Belgian farmhouse one is easy because it celebrates antiques, and so does Um,
Cottage.
so does the modern cottage. So you can thrift a lot of that stuff and pull off the look.
Yeah,
So if you're on a budget and those are two that are speaking to you, you can easily do that on a budget.
great point.
Um, some of these other ones, hmm, not quite so much. The quiet luxury, you're going to have to invest in a couple of pieces. Um, Same with that modern minimalism and the organic modern. You'll probably have to make some major shifts and changes. But you can also consider that you can kind of slowly transition your home room by room. You don't have to do the whole house at one time.
That's a great point. I think maybe we should recap kind of where all of that brought us. Because I think if you take your time, trends are trends for a reason. They come and go. But the biggest thing is we are highlighting six of those. And they are not
Right.
just Pinterest trends. They are coming from KBA, which is
Yeah, the National Kitchen and Bath Association is where several of these came from. And so they're kind of like the leading industry organization for kitchen and bath designers.
Yeah. I love that we're bringing it in. This is what the industry is saying. This is what they're seeing. So it's not just, our opinion. I think another part of this is that there are some patterns that trend through all of them, which is these natural colors, your nature colors, the jewel tones, but even softened, lightened, or darker, depending on which trend people choose. I think it's kind of like how to the evolution of your current home into the trend that you're hoping to do in practical ways if you're not ready to jump into a reno, or if you're building when you can incorporate them. And then last but not least, like how do we go out and take care of some of these things in a really easy way, and those hacks that we talked about that we'll probably put a list of in our show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any final words of wisdom, Salem? Are you excited about your powder room? Do you have any other projects that you're hoping to bring one of these trends to?
Well, the biggest project for 2024, and I'm trying to organize my calendar now to get it happening, get it on the calendar because it will take us all weekend. But because of my indecisiveness, could not pick a backsplash whenever we renovated our house. So it's been 6 years since we moved in and no backsplash. And so now the drywall in the kitchen is, you can tell that I don't have a backsplash. It is, I mean, it doesn't look terrible, but at a first glance, it doesn't look terrible, but it's time. And so I have that tile. It is sitting in my garage. It's just got to get installed. So that's priority number one for 2024.
I'm so excited about that. I also think there's a life lesson here, or a learning opportunity for other people who are just as indecisive as you, because that's not a bad thing, right? But that
Right.
is that you can like take your time. You don't necessarily have to be like, I just want the subway tile because that's always going to be around. You could say, don't do any tile until you decide or you find one that you're absolutely in love with and can't live without. I think that's
Yeah.
just a really important lesson to note right now.
Yeah. You do not have to have a backsplash in order to move back in. Let's say that.
Yeah. I
But
love that.
uh,
I would have never thought of that, and that might have changed some things for me, but probably not. But it might change some things for someone else. So
yeah. And so I mean, long story short, I still haven't found the one backsplash, like the one, like I thought I found the one at the International Builder Show last year, but when I got the sample and brought it home, it did not look as good as I thought it was going to. But that thing was so perfect. Anyway, so had the biggest letdown ever. Sample did not look good. So I had to kind of go back to the drawing board after that. And I spent the whole rest of the year trying to find one. And so I did find one, and I will say one, it's super trendy, but I didn't spend a ton on it. And a backsplash is, I mean, yes, it's not going to be inexpensive, but we are installing it ourselves. And so if I hate it in a couple of years, it's not going to be a huge deal to tear it back down and put something else up. And so a backsplash is not always considered like an accessory piece, but in my case, I'm considering it like a like an accessory.
yeah, well, I'm excited to see that. I think we've given all we can for now. This is going to be a fantastic episode. I think it's going to allow us to really share some of our creativity online with our people, our listeners, and everything too. And I think that's it for now. What are you ready to
I
sign off?
think no, I think that's wonderful. Yeah. Um, and like we said before, I think the biggest takeaways from the trends this year is just warmth and natural materials,
Mm,
natural stone, wood, fibers, textiles, anything made from nature.
yes, those will never go out of style, no matter what.
Correct.
Great. Well, guys, until next time.
Until next time, we'll see you later.
We hope today's episode gave you some inspiration and something new to try. Until next time, friends, you've got this.